This presentation will discuss the Title I Part A requirement related to the LEA Plan Required Descriptions, which has been selected for review as part of the Program Monitoring Validation process being conducted by the Federal Program Compliance Division at the Texas Education Agency. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure the overall compliance with program requirements, LEAs should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for submission during the program monitoring validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. For item 1.1, the selected LEAs must submit evidence showing that the required descriptions have been incorporated into the LEA plan. Acceptable documentation for this would include the relevant pages of the LEA's Title I Part A program plan for the specified school year that includes the statutorily required descriptions. For the area related to student monitoring and supports, the LEA must describe how the LEA will monitor students' progress in meeting the state academic standards by developing and implementing a well-rounded program of instruction to meet the academic needs of all students, by identifying students who may be at risk for academic failure, by providing additional educational assistance to individual students who the LEA or school determines needs help in meeting the challenging state academic standards, and by identifying and implementing instructional or other strategies intended to strengthen academic programs and improve school conditions for student learning. The LEA plan shall describe how the LEA will ensure that all students receive a high-quality education and close the achievement gap between children meeting the challenging state academic standards and those children who are not meeting such standards. Please note that the description should not simply be a statement that the LEA will do these things. The LEA must describe how these things will be accomplished. In the area of teacher quality, the LEA plan shall describe how the LEA will identify and address any disparities that result in low-income students and minority students being taught at higher rates than other students by ineffective, inexperienced, or out-of-field teachers. In the area of school improvement and support activities, the LEA plan shall include how the LEA will carry out its school improvement activities and responsibilities if any campuses within the LEA are identified by TEA as comprehensive support and improvement, targeted support and improvement, and/or additional targeted support campuses. The LEA plan must also include the measure of poverty the LEA will use to identify campuses as eligible for Title I Part A programs. Statute allows LEAs to select from the following measures of poverty: children ages 5 through 17 inclusive, in poverty counted in the most recent census data approved by the Secretary of Education, children eligible for free or reduced price lunches under the National School Lunch Act, children and families receiving assistance under the Title IV Part A of the Social Security Act, children eligible to receive medical assistance under the Medicaid program, or a composite of any of the above measures. Whichever measure the LEA selects to identify campuses, the LEA must use the same measure of poverty to rank campuses and to allocate Title I Part A funds. The LEA plan must describe the nature of the programs to be conducted under school-wide and targeted assistance programs, and where appropriate, educational services outside of such schools for children living in local institutions for the neglected or delinquent, and for neglected and delinquent children in community day school programs. The LEA plan must describe the services the LEA will provide to homeless children and youth to support the enrollment, attendance, and success of homeless children and youth in coordination with the services the LEA is providing under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. The LEA plan must include the strategies the LEA will use to implement effective parent and family engagement. If applicable, the LEA plan must describe how the LEA will support, coordinate, and integrate services provided with Title I Part A with early childhood education programs at the LEA or individual school level, including plans for the transition of participants in such programs to local elementary school programs. If an LEA has campuses that are operating a targeted assistance program, the LEA plan must include the criteria that will be used to identify the eligible children most in need of services under Title I Part A. For grades 3 through 12, these must be multiple educationally related objective criteria, such as benchmark tests or STAR assessments. For grades pre-K through 2, these would include multiple criteria that are age appropriate. This could include teacher checklists. If an LEA has middle school and/or high school grades, the LEA plan must describe how the LEA will implement strategies to facilitate effective transitions for students from middle grades to high school and from high school to post-secondary education, including any coordination with institutions of higher education, employers, and other local partners, and increase student access to early college, high school, or dual or concurrent enrollment opportunities, or career counseling to identify student interests and skills. The LEA plan must also include a description of how the LEA will support efforts to reduce the overuse of discipline practices that remove students from the classroom, which may include identifying and supporting schools with high rates of discipline disaggregated by each of the subgroups of students. If applicable, the LEA plan must describe how the LEA will support programs that coordinate and integrate academic and career and technical education content through coordinated instructional strategies that may incorporate experiential learning opportunities and promote skills attainment important to the in-demand occupations or industries in the state, and work-based learning opportunities that provide students in-depth interaction with industry professionals and, if appropriate, academic credit. And finally, the LEA plan must describe any other information on how the LEA proposes to use funds to meet the purposes of Title I Part A, and that the LEA determines appropriate to provide, which may include how the LEA will assist schools in identifying and serving gifted and talented students, and assist schools in developing effective school library programs to provide students an opportunity to develop digital literacy skills and improve academic achievement. Please note that any LEA reservations of Title I Part A funds that have not been addressed in the previous descriptions should be included in this section. Issues related to the required descriptions in the LEA plan that may result in an improvement needed status include: the auditable documentation was not submitted, the documentation submitted does not include the required descriptions, or the documentation submitted is not for the school year specified in the validation. Questions related to the program monitoring validations for the Title I Part A program may be directed to Vivian Smurl at essasupport@tea.texas.gov.